My son Brandon stood in my tiny apartment kitchen, his expensive suit making the cramped space feel even smaller. He smiled that confident smile I used to love and asked, "Mom, are you happy with the $4,000 Clara sends you every month?" My heart stopped. $4,000? I had not received a single penny. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. I hesitated, my voice barely a whisper when I finally spoke. "Son, the church is keeping me alive these days." His face changed, confusion replacing that easy confidence. And right then, Clara walked through the door. Clara stood frozen in the doorway, her arms loaded with glossy shopping bags from stores I could not afford to walk past. Her perfectly styled blonde hair caught the afternoon light streaming through my one good window. For just a second, maybe less than a heartbeat, I saw her face go pale beneath all that makeup. Then she recovered so fast, I almost thought I had imagined it. "What do you mean, Lupe?" Her voice dripped with concern, sweet as honey, smooth as silk. She set down her bags and rushed toward me, her heels clicking on my worn linoleum floor. "I have been sending that money for 3 years." Brandon turned to her, his brow furrowed. "Clara, Mom says she has not been getting it." Clara pulled out her phone with the kind of quick efficiency that should have warned me right then. Her fingers flew across the screen. "Look, Brandon, right here." She held the phone out to him, then tilted it so I could see too. Bank statements filled the small screen, row after row of transactions. $4,000 every month. Going to an account number that looked familiar in a way that made my stomach turn. "That account?" I started, my voice shaking. "That is my old account. I closed it 2 years ago when the bank branch near me shut down. I opened a new one closer to the church." Clara's eyes widened, but there was something calculated in her expression. "Lupe, honey, you never told me you changed accounts." She turned to Brandon, touching his arm gently. "Sweetheart, did you know your mother closed her account?" Brandon looked at me, and I saw the question forming before he even spoke. "Mom, why did not you tell us?" "I did not think about it," I said, feeling defensive and hating that I felt that way. "The bank handled the transfer. My Social Security goes to the new account just fine. I assumed everything was automatic." Clara made a soft sound, almost sympathetic. "Where has all that money been going then, if I have been sending it to a closed account?" She trailed off, letting the implication hang in the air. Brandon pulled out his own phone. "Let me call the bank. We can figure this out." While he dialed, Clara moved closer to me. To anyone watching, she looked like a concerned daughter-in-law. But her voice, when she spoke low enough that Brandon could not hear over his phone conversation, had edges sharp enough to cut. "You should be more careful, Lupe. At your age, these kinds of mistakes happen. Forgetting things, getting confused." I stared at her. Something in her tone made my blood run cold. "Brandon, honey," Clara called out, her voice shifting back to that sweet register. "Did you tell your mother about Christmas dinner? She seemed so confused on the phone when I called." Brandon covered his phone, waiting on hold. "Mom, you said you could not make it to Christmas. Remember? You said you had church obligations." "I was never invited," I said quietly. Clara laughed, a tinkling sound like wind chimes. "Lupe, I called you myself. You said you were too tired to make the drive. I even offered to send a car." She looked at Brandon. "Remember, honey? I was so worried about her." I opened my mouth to protest, but Brandon's attention was back on his phone. Someone at the bank had answered. I listened as he explained the situation, his voice patient but strained. When he hung up, he looked tired. "The bank says money sent to a closed account gets returned to the sender after 30 days. Clara, did you get any returned payments?" Clara shook her head slowly. "No, but I send so many payments for the business, for our household accounts. Maybe I missed the notifications?" She pulled up her banking app again, scrolling. Everything shows as completed on my end. Brandon ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I remembered from when he was a little boy and could not solve his math homework. "This does not make sense." "Brandon," Clara said gently, "your mother mentioned forgetting about her birthday call last month, and she did seem disoriented when we talked at Easter. Do you remember? She could not remember what year you graduated college." My chest tightened. I was not disoriented. You asked me on the spot, and I was in the middle of cooking. I said the wrong year by mistake. Anyone could do that. Clara reached out and patted my hand. The gesture looked caring. Her grip was just a little too tight. Of course, Lupe. We all have those moments, especially as we get older. She looked at Brandon meaningfully. I saw it then. I saw exactly what she was doing. Every little incident over the past months, every small mistake or miscommunication, she had been cataloging them. Building something. A story where I was the unreliable narrator of my own life. Brandon's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and sighed. I have to take this. It is the Singapore office. Mom, I am sorry. We will figure this out, I promise. He kissed Clara on the cheek, a quick, familiar gesture that spoke of years together. Then he came to me, and his hug felt perfunctory, distracted. I will call you later. And then he was gone. His expensive shoes echoing down the hallway outside my apartment, his voice already shifting into business mode as he answered his phone. Clara and I stood alone in my kitchen. The bags from her shopping trip sat by the door like silent witnesses. She walked over to me, close enough that I could smell her perfume. It probably cost more than my monthly rent. You need to be very careful, Lupe, she whispered, her smile never wavering in case Brandon looked back through the window. One word about this to Brandon, and I will make sure he never speaks to you again. I have been planning this for years. He believes everything I say. Everything. She picked up her shopping bags, her pleasant expression sliding back into place like a mask. I will make this right, Lupe. I will transfer money to your new account. Just send me the account number. She said it loud enough, clearly, like she was performing for an invisible audience. Then she was gone too, and I was alone in my apartment. The donation basket from church sat on my counter, filled with canned goods and a few bills the congregation had collected for me last Sunday. My only source of survival. And my son thought his wife had been supporting me for 3 years. I sat down at my small kitchen table, my hands shaking. The apartment felt even smaller now, the walls pressing in. Through the window, I could see Brandon's luxury car pulling out of the parking lot, Clara in the passenger seat. She glanced up at my window. Even from here, I could see her smile. 2 weeks crawled by like wounded animals. Every morning, I checked my bank account on the library computer during my part-time shift, hoping despite everything that maybe Clara had actually sent the money. The balance never changed except to go down. $43.18. That was all that stood between me and absolute nothing. I gathered every bank statement I could find, spread them across the reference desk during my break. 7 months of statements, clear as glass. Not a single deposit from Clara. Not one penny. I took pictures with my old phone, the one Brandon had given me 3 Christmases ago, when he could still look me in the eye without that new wariness. My hands shook as I called him. The phone rang 4 times before he answered, and I could hear the careful patience in his voice that people use with children or the very old. Hi, Mom. Is everything okay? Brandon, I went to the bank. I have the statements right here. There is nothing from Clara. Not one deposit in 3 years. A pause. Traffic noise in the background. He was driving somewhere. Mom, Clara already handled this. She sent $5,000 to your new account to make up for the confusion. Did you not get it? 5,000. The number had grown. When did she send it? Last week. She showed me the confirmation. I checked my phone again, pulling up the mobile banking app that I barely understood how to use. Brandon, there is nothing here. His sigh crackled through the phone speaker. It takes a few days to process. Give it time. How much time? Mom. That word, the way he said it. Like I was being difficult. Like I was the problem. Clara is trying to help. She feels terrible about the account mix-up. But you have to understand, this is on you too. You closed your account without telling anyone. How was she supposed to know? The words hit like a slap. I did not think. Exactly. You did not think. And now you are acting like Clara did something wrong when she has been nothing but generous. His voice softened slightly. Maybe you should start writing things down. Keep a notebook of important information. It might help with the memory issues. Memory issues. The phrase hung between us like smoke. I do not have memory issues, I said. But my voice sounded weak even to my own ears. I have to go, Mom. I am pulling into a meeting. We will talk later. The call ended before I could respond. I sat at the reference desk, surrounded by books about topics I used to help people research, and felt more lost than I had in my entire 70 years. That evening, my daughter Stephanie called, Brandon's younger sister, the one who used to bring me wildflowers from her garden. Her voice was gentle, the kind of gentle people use in hospitals. "Mom, Brandon told me what is going on." Relief flooded through me. "Stephanie, I am so glad you called. I need help figuring out—" "Mom, stop." She cut me off. "Brandon told me about the confusion with the money, and about Christmas. And your birthday. Mom, Clara has been so good to you. Why are you doing this?" The relief curdled in my stomach. Doing what? I am not doing anything. I am trying to tell you that I never got any money from Clara. Not $1. Clara showed Brandon the bank transfers. "She has proof, Mom. You are the one who closed your account and did not tell anyone." Stephanie's voice cracked slightly. "I am worried about you. We all are." "We?" The word came out as a whisper. "The family group chat. Clara has been keeping us updated about your health. She is worried you are struggling more than you want to admit." Family group chat. I did not know there was a family group chat. What health updates? I am fine. I am healthy. "Mom," Clara said, "you fainted at church last month, and that you have been forgetting to take your blood pressure medication and mixing up dates and events." Each statement landed like a stone in still water. "She is just trying to help. We all are. But you have to let us." I thought back to last month. I had felt dizzy during service, sat down for a moment. Pastor Ruth brought me water. I never fainted. And yes, I had missed a few doses of my blood pressure medication because the pharmacy wanted $230 I did not have, but I never told anyone that. "Stephanie, none of that is true. I mean, I did feel dizzy once, but I did not faint. And I know exactly what day it is, what year it is, everything. Clara is lying." The silence on the other end lasted too long. When Stephanie spoke again, her voice was distant. "Mom, I think you need to see a doctor. A specialist." Brandon said Clara even mentioned it might be early dementia, and— "Dementia?" My voice came out too loud. An elderly man reading newspapers glared at me. I lowered my voice. "I do not have dementia." "Mom, getting defensive about it is actually a symptom." I looked it up. She sounded close to tears now. "Please, just see someone. Let us help you." After she hung up, I sat in the growing darkness of the library. Through the windows, I could see the parking lot emptying as staff left for the day. My shift had ended 10 minutes ago, but I could not seem to make myself move. I pulled up my contacts, scrolled through the names. My brother Thomas, my cousin Maria, Brandon's business partner Marcus. One by one, I thought about calling them. One by one, I realized Clara had probably gotten to them first. The rent notice sat in my purse, the second one this month. 7 days. I had 7 days to come up with $572, or I would lose my apartment. The apartment where I had lived for 8 years. Where I had slowly assembled a life after Brandon's father died. Where I kept my few good dishes, my mother's quilt, the photo albums of Brandon and Stephanie as babies. I called Brandon one more time. Voicemail. I tried to keep my voice steady. "Son, I know you are busy, but I need help with rent this month. I am a little short. Please call me back." He called back 3 hours later. I was in my apartment by then, eating soup from a can because I could not afford anything else until my next paycheck. "Mom, Clara sends you $4,000 a month. That is $48,000 a year. Where is it all going?" "Brandon, I already told you. I never. We have been over this." His voice was sharp now, frustrated. "You closed your account without telling anyone. That is on you. Clara has been incredibly generous, and you are acting ungrateful. Do you know how that makes me look? My wife has been supporting my mother for 3 years, and now my mother is claiming she never got any of it? But I did not. Enough, Mom. I have to go." The call ended. I sat holding the phone for a long time, the soup growing cold in my bowl. Through the thin walls of my apartment, I could hear my neighbor's television, canned laughter from some comedy show, normal sounds from normal lives. The eviction notice arrived 3 days later. 30 days to pay or vacate. I held the paper in my hands, the official letterhead blurring through my tears. In 70 years, I had never been evicted from anywhere. I had raised 2 children, buried a husband, worked every job I could find, and now I was about to be homeless. The urgent care clinic smelled like antiseptic and desperation. I sat on the paper-covered examination table, my head still spinning, while Pastor Ruth filled out paperwork at the front desk. The fainting spell had happened right after the morning service. One moment I was helping fold the chairs, the next I was on the floor with Pastor Ruth's worried face hovering above me. The doctor, a tired-looking woman about my daughter's age, checked my blood pressure 3 times. Each time, she frowned at the numbers. "Mrs. Torres, your blood pressure is dangerously high. When did you last take your medication?" 5 days ago. The admission felt like failure. I ran out. "And you did not refill it?" I looked at my hands. I could not afford it. She was quiet for a moment, tapping something into her computer. "Your prescription is for lisinopril. The generic should only be about $30. My insurance lapsed. Without it, the pharmacy said it would be $230. More typing. She pulled up something on her screen, then printed several pages. "I am giving you samples, enough for 1 week. But Mrs. Torres, you need to fill this prescription. High blood pressure like yours, left untreated, can cause a stroke. Do you understand?" I nodded, taking the samples and the prescription. 1 week. 7 days to figure out how to get $230 I did not have. Pastor Ruth drove me home, her ancient sedan rattling over every pothole. She was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall, with gray hair she wore in a practical bun and eyes that saw too much. She had been running the community church for 23 years, had seen every kind of suffering this neighborhood had to offer. "Lupe," she said, pulling up to my building, "the church has some funds. Not much, but we can help with your medication. You already helped me last month, and the month before. Shame burned in my throat. I cannot keep taking from the church. That is what the church is for, helping our community. There are families with children who need help more than I do." She turned off the engine, looked at me directly. "How long until you lose your apartment?" I should have been surprised she knew. I was not. Pastor Ruth knew everything about her congregation. 5 days. "And your son? He is wealthy, is he not? He thinks his wife has been sending me money. $4,000 a month for 3 years. She convinced him I got it and spent it somehow. He thinks I am either lying or losing my mind." The words tumbled out. All the fear and frustration I had been holding back. "She is setting me up, Pastor Ruth, making me look incompetent. And it is working." Pastor Ruth was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Come to church on Sunday. We will see what we can do." Sunday came. The eviction notice was taped to my door when I got home from work Saturday night. 3 days left. I sat on my bed, surrounded by boxes I had started packing. Most of my possessions would have to go to Goodwill. I could not afford a storage unit. My car was old enough to be unreliable, but it was paid off. I could sleep in it if I had to. The thought made my hands shake. 70 years old and sleeping in a car. I almost did not go to church Sunday morning. Pride, maybe, or shame, but I had nowhere else to be, nothing else to hold on to. So I put on my best dress, the navy one I wore to weddings and funerals, and drove to the little community church that had become my refuge. Pastor Ruth's sermon was about perseverance, about Job, who lost everything but kept his faith. I wondered if she had planned it before or chosen it for me. Either way, the words washed over me without quite landing. I was too tired, too scared, too focused on counting the remaining hours until eviction. After the service, as I helped stack the hymnals, my phone rang. Brandon. My heart jumped. Maybe he had changed his mind. Maybe he believed me. Maybe, "Mom, we need to talk." The tone stopped my hope cold. "Okay. Can I come by this afternoon?" "Of course. You are always welcome. I will be there at 3. He hung up without saying goodbye. I spent the intervening hours cleaning my apartment, though there was little point with eviction looming, but old habits die hard, and I needed something to do with my shaking hands. At 2:45, I made coffee. I could not afford. Set out the good cups. Brandon arrived exactly at 3. Clara was with him. They stood in my living room, Brandon looking uncomfortable, Clara serene as a painting. She wore white linen that probably cost more than my rent, her hair perfect, her smile kind. To anyone watching, she looked like a caring daughter-in-law making a difficult visit. "Mom," Brandon started, then stopped. Started again. "Clara and I have been talking. About your situation. My situation. The eviction notice. The confusion about money. The health issues." He glanced at Clara, who nodded encouragingly. "We want to help. We have found a solution." Something in his tone made my stomach drop. "What solution?" Clara stepped forward, her voice gentle. "Lupe, we have been looking at assisted living facilities. There is a beautiful one about 20 minutes from our house. Full-time care, medication management, activities, all your meals provided. You would not have to worry about rent or bills or anything." The words penetrated slowly, like cold water seeping through clothes. Assisted living. "It is actually a memory care facility," Brandon said, "but it is very nice. We toured it yesterday. You would have your own room, a little patio, a memory care facility." I repeated the words carefully. "That is for people with dementia." "Mom," Brandon's voice was strained, "you are homeless, or about to be. You cannot manage your finances. You are not taking your medication properly. And these accusations about Clara—" "They are not accusations," I said. "They are facts. She never sent me any money." Clara's expression was pained. Perfectly pained, like an actress in a drama. "Lupe, I have shown Brandon the bank records. I have done everything I can to help. But I cannot help if you are going to be hostile and defensive." Brandon ran his hand through his hair, that old gesture. "The facility would take care of everything. You would be safe. You would have your medication. 3 meals a day. People to talk to. A locked memory care facility." "It is not locked," Clara said quickly. Too quickly. I looked at my son. "Is it locked, Brandon?" He could not meet my eyes. "Some areas have security. For the residents' safety. I am not incompetent." My voice came out stronger than I felt. "I am poor. There is a difference. I am poor because your wife has been stealing from me, and probably stealing from you too, and you are too blind to see it." Brandon's face flushed. "That is exactly the kind of paranoid thinking that worries us, Mom. Clara has done nothing but try to help you, and you are making wild accusations." "They are not wild. They are true." "You are homeless!" He was shouting now, something Brandon almost never did. "You cannot take care of yourself. You just fainted at church. You cannot afford your medication. What am I supposed to do, Mom? Just let you live on the street?" The silence, after his outburst, felt thick enough to choke on. "I would rather live on the street than be locked in a facility I do not need," I said quietly. Clara put her hand on Brandon's arm. "Sweetheart, maybe we should give your mother some time to think about it. This is a big decision." She looked at me, and her eyes were so cold beneath that kind expression. "Lupe, we are just worried about your safety. We love you. We want what is best for you." They left, Brandon still agitated, Clara calm. After they were gone, I sat in my apartment and let the reality sink in. They were going to try to put me in a locked facility. My own son was going to take away my freedom because his wife had convinced him I was losing my mind. I pulled out my laptop, the one that barely worked anymore. At the library, I had learned to use the internet for research. Now I typed in guardianship abuse and started reading. The stories I found made my blood run cold. Elderly people trapped in facilities against their will. Families taking complete legal control. Selling homes, draining bank accounts. Once a guardianship was granted, it was nearly impossible to reverse. People lost everything. Their money, their homes, their freedom, their dignity. And it was all legal. I read until my eyes burned. Read about how easy it was to get an emergency guardianship, a few doctors' statements, testimony from family members, evidence of inability to care for oneself. Homelessness checked that box. Missed medication checked that box. Financial confusion checked that box. Clara had been building her case for months, maybe years. Every small incident, every little miscommunication, she had been collecting them like ammunition. 2 days later, the papers arrived. Brandon was petitioning for emergency guardianship. The court date was in 3 weeks. I sat on the floor of my apartment, surrounded by moving boxes I could not afford to fill, and held the legal papers in my shaking hands. The language was dense, full of legal terms I barely understood, but the meaning was clear. If the court granted guardianship, Brandon and Clara would have complete control over my life, where I lived, what I did with my money, my medical care, everything. I would lose myself. Legally, officially, I would cease to exist as an independent person. The eviction happened 2 days before I could scrape together any alternative. The sheriff came with the landlord. They were kind about it, apologetic even, but firm. I had 2 hours to take what I could carry. The rest would be put in storage for 30 days, after which it would be disposed of if I could not pay the storage fees. I filled my car with what mattered most. My mother's quilt, photo albums, some clothes, my medication samples, nearly gone. Everything else, furniture I had saved for, dishes I had collected over decades, books I loved, all of it stayed behind. Pastor Ruth found me in the church parking lot that night, sleeping in my car. She knocked on the window gently, like she was afraid of startling me. Maybe she was. "Come on, Lupe. We have a spot at the shelter." The women's shelter was in the church basement. 6 beds in a room that used to be a Sunday school classroom. Cheerful drawings of Noah's Ark and Jesus with lambs still decorated the walls, incongruous next to the worn cots and the hollow-eyed women who called this place home. I moved in with a garbage bag of my belongings. At 70 years old, homeless, everything I owned fit in one garbage bag. My roommates were Madison, who was 42 and fleeing an abusive husband; Crystal, who was 27, and addicted to opioids she had first been prescribed for a back injury; and Beverly, who was 68 and had been here for 2 years after her daughter got guardianship, and then abandoned her in the cheapest facility she could find until Beverly escaped. Beverly looked at me with eyes that had seen too much. "What is your story?" she asked that first night. I told her. All of it, the whole horrible spiral. When I finished, Beverly nodded slowly. My daughter did the same thing. Convinced the court I was incompetent, got guardianship, sold my house, put me in a place that was more prison than home. I fought it in court. I lost. She gestured around the shelter. "This is better than that facility. At least here I am free to come and go." "How did you lose?" "If you could clearly speak for yourself." They had a doctor who said I was paranoid and delusional. They had bank records showing I had bounced checks. They had my own son testifying that I could not remember his birthday. Beverly's laugh was bitter. I remembered his birthday fine. I just could not afford a present that year, so I avoided him. But they twisted everything, made me look crazy. I looked at her, this woman who could have been me in another year, and felt the future closing in like a fist. The court hearing was in 2.5 weeks. Living in the shelter taught me things about desperation I had never wanted to know. How to make $3 last 5 days. How to hide medication so it did not get stolen. How to sleep through Madison's nightmares and Crystal's crying. How to wash clothes in a sink when the shelter's single washing machine was broken. How to keep your dignity when you had nothing left but your name. I spent my days at the library, partly because I still had my part-time job, and partly because it was the only place I felt human. The computers were free, the bathroom was clean, and nobody looked at me like I was pitiful or dangerous. I was just Mrs. Torres, who worked reference desk, who helped people find books and fill out job applications and research topics for school papers. I used every spare moment on those computers to research guardianship law, Texas law, specifically. What I found made my hands shake so badly I had to stop typing. Emergency guardianships could be granted in as little as 3 days. The burden of proof was shockingly low. If the petitioner could show the person was in immediate danger of harm or financial exploitation, the court could grant temporary guardianship while a full hearing was scheduled. And once temporary guardianship was granted, fighting it was like trying to swim upstream through concrete. I printed everything I could, spending money I did not have on copies. Court cases, legal precedents, rights of the elderly. I was building a defense with no lawyer, no money, and no family support. 12 days before the hearing, Brandon came to the shelter. I was folding my clothes, the 3 outfits I rotated through, washing them every other day when Pastor Ruth found me. "Lupe, your son is here." My heart jumped and sank simultaneously. I followed her to the small office they let me use for private visits. Brandon stood by the window, looking out at the parking lot. He turned when I came in, and his face was a mixture of pity and frustration that made me want to scream. "Mom," he gestured at the folding chairs. "Sit down, please." Saturday. He sat across from me, close enough that I could see the expensive fabric of his suit, smell his cologne that probably cost more than my weekly food budget. "Mom, you cannot live like this. I am managing. You are homeless." His voice cracked. "My mother is living in a shelter. Do you know what that feels like for me? To know you are here while Clara and I are in a house with 6 bedrooms? Then let me stay with you." He looked away. "Clara thinks that would enable your problems. That you need professional care, not just a guest room. Brandon, I do not have problems. I am not confused. I am not incompetent. I am poor because Clara stole from me. From both of us, probably." I pulled out the folder I had prepared. "Look at these bank statements. 3 years, not a single deposit from Clara. Now look at this." I showed him printouts I had found online. "This is Clara's personal Instagram. Look at the dates. This post about her spa weekend in California, that was the same weekend you thought she drove here to help me move furniture. This one about the shopping trip to New York, you told me she was visiting her sick aunt." Brandon barely glanced at the papers. "Social media is not evidence of anything, Mom. People post old photos all the time." "Brandon, please. Just listen." "No, Mom. You listen." He leaned forward, and I saw the weariness in his face. My successful, wealthy son looked exhausted. Clara showed me the medical reports, from 3 different doctors. They all say the same thing. Early-stage dementia, probably Alzheimer's. Memory issues, confusion, paranoia, tendency to make accusations. My blood went cold. "What doctors?" "I have not seen any doctors except the urgent care when I fainted." "These doctors." He pulled out a folder of his own, thicker than mine. Official letterhead, signatures, detailed reports. I scanned the names. Dr. Patricia Morrison, Dr. James Chen, Dr. Sarah Kim. I had never heard of any of them, had certainly never been examined by them. "These are falsified," I whispered. Brandon's expression hardened. "Why would 3 respected physicians falsify medical reports, Mom?" "Because Clara paid them to. Or she created fake documents." "Brandon, I swear on my life, I have never met these doctors." And there it is. He stood up abruptly. "The paranoia. That is exactly what they said you would do. Claim everything is fake. Everyone is lying. Clara is the villain." He paced the small office. "Do you know what this is doing to my marriage? Clara has been crying herself to sleep because you keep accusing her of things. She has done nothing but try to help you, and you repay her with these insane accusations. They are not insane. They are true." "Stop it," he shouted, then seemed to catch himself. Lowered his voice. "Just stop, Mom, please. This is killing me." He left, and I sat alone with the fake medical reports. 3 doctors I had never seen, all diagnosing me with dementia. Clara had been thorough, terrifyingly thorough. That night, I called Stephanie. She had been avoiding my calls, but this time she answered. "Mom, I'm glad you called. We need to talk about the hearing." "Stephanie, honey, please listen to me. Those medical reports Brandon has, they are fake. I never saw those doctors. Clara created them." A long sigh. "Mom, I am going to testify at the hearing, in support of the guardianship." The words hit like a physical blow. "What?" "I am sorry, but you need help. Real help. Brandon and Clara showed me everything. The medical reports, the bank statements, the testimony from your landlord." "My landlord? What testimony?" "He said you were confused about rent payments, that you claimed you had paid when you had not, that you were erratic and disoriented." Stephanie's voice wavered. "Mom, I love you, but you are not okay, and refusing to admit it is just making everything worse. Your brother's wife is a liar and a thief. She has been setting this up for years. Can you not see that?" There it is again, the paranoia, the accusations. Stephanie was crying now. "Mom, please just accept the help. The facility Brandon found is beautiful. You will be safe there. You will have everything you need. Is that really so terrible? It is a locked memory care facility for people with dementia that I do not have. Yes, Stephanie. That is terrible. She hung up. I sat in the shelter's common room, surrounded by women who had also been failed by the systems meant to protect them, and felt utterly alone. 7 days before the hearing, Pastor Ruth pulled me aside after a church dinner we served to the homeless, the irony not lost on me that I was now one of those being served. Lupe, I called my brother. He is a lawyer, elder law. She handed me a business card. He said he will talk to you. The lawyer's name was Daniel Peterson. His office was in a strip mall between a nail salon and a tax preparation service. He was about 50, with kind eyes and ink stains on his shirt pocket. I told him everything, showed him my evidence. He listened, took notes, and when I finished, he was quiet for a long time. Mrs. Torres, I will be honest with you. This is a difficult case. But you can help? I can try. Pro bono, given your circumstances. But you need to understand what we are up against. He spread the fake medical reports on his desk. These look legitimate. The letterhead, the signatures, the language, whoever created these knew what they were doing. Proving they are falsified will require tracking down these doctors, getting statements, maybe hiring a forensic document examiner. That takes time and money. The hearing is in 7 days. I know, he rubbed his face. We can request a continuance, but given that you are currently homeless and the petition cites immediate danger, the judge may not grant it. So what do I do? You show up. You testify clearly and coherently. You explain your situation, and we hope the judge sees through this. He did not sound hopeful. I left his office feeling worse than when I arrived. Hope, it turned out, could be more painful than despair. 3 days before the hearing, Clara came to the shelter. I was sitting in the common room, going over my testimony with Daniel's help. He had given me 2 hours of his evening when Pastor Ruth came to get me. Lupe, you have a visitor. Clara sat in the office, looking as out of place in the shabby room as a diamond in mud. She stood when I entered, all false warmth and poisonous kindness. Lupe, I am so glad you agreed to see me. I had not agreed. I stood by the door, ready to leave. Daniel had warned me not to talk to her without him present, but he was across town at another client's crisis. I will make this quick, Clara said. I want you to understand something. I am not doing this to be cruel. I am doing this because Brandon deserves better than to have his mother be a constant source of stress and embarrassment. You are stealing from him. Am I? She smiled. Or am I smart enough to ensure my future? Brandon makes 7 figures a year, Lupe. He will never miss the money. But you? You were in the way. You still are. Why are you telling me this? Because I have already won. The hearing is in 3 days. I have 3 doctors' reports. I have bank statements. I have testimony from your landlord, your own children, family, friends. I have built an impeccable case over 3 years. You have what? Your word against mine? She laughed, soft and cold. And everyone believes me. She moved toward the door, paused beside me. The facility I chose for you is actually quite nice. Clean, at least. The food is terrible and the staff is underpaid, but you will be safe. Locked away where you cannot cause any more problems. And Brandon will pay $2,200 a month for your care. You will never actually receive at that level, of course. The difference goes into my retirement fund. My hands clenched into fists. I will tell the judge. Tell him what? That his daughter-in-law confessed her evil plan? Clara's expression was pure mockery. They will just say it is more paranoid delusion. You have no proof of this conversation. It is your word against mine, and we have already established who everyone believes. She left, trailing expensive perfume and triumph. I stood alone in the office, shaking with rage and terror. She had planned everything, every detail, every lie, and she was right, she had already won. But then I remembered. My phone was in my pocket. I pulled it out, hands trembling, and stopped the recording. I had recorded everything. Beverly found me 20 minutes later, still sitting in the office, staring at my phone. She looked at my face and knew something had changed. What happened? I played her the recording. Clara's voice, clear and incriminating, confessing to years of fraud, embezzlement, and her plans to institutionalize me. Beverly's eyes widened. You got her. I got her. For the first time in months, I felt something other than despair. I felt hope, Real hope. The kind that burned. The courthouse was downtown, a building that tried to look important with marble floors and high ceilings, but mostly just looked bureaucratic and cold. I arrived an hour early with Daniel, wearing the one decent outfit I owned, slacks and a blouse I had ironed in the shelter bathroom. Brandon was already there with Clara and a lawyer, whose suit probably cost more than my car. They sat on the opposite side of the hallway, Clara looking serene in cream and pearls, Brandon looking like a man walking to his own execution. Our eyes met across the space. He looked away first. Stephanie arrived with her husband. My brother Thomas came, looking uncomfortable in a tie. A few other family members I barely saw anymore filled the benches. All of them were here to testify against me, to say I could not take care of myself, to help lock me away. The hearing started at 9 sharp. The judge was a woman in her 50s named Helena Vasquez. She had tired eyes and a stack of files on her desk that suggested this was just one of many sad cases she would hear today. Clara's lawyer went first. His name was Mr. Harrison, and he was very good at his job. He painted a picture of a woman-me in cognitive decline. Homeless, unable to manage her finances, making paranoid accusations against the people trying to help her. He called Brandon first. My son sat in the witness box and testified that he was worried about my safety, that I had accused his wife of stealing money despite clear evidence to the contrary, that I had lost my apartment, my health insurance, my ability to manage basic daily tasks. His voice cracked when he talked about finding me at the shelter. I love my mother, he said, but she needs help I cannot provide, professional help. Stephanie testified next, said I had been forgetting things, seeming confused on phone calls, unable to remember basic facts, said she supported the guardianship because she wanted me to be safe. Thomas said similar things. So did my former landlord, who swore I had been confused about rent payments and had seemed disoriented. Then they presented the medical reports. 3 doctors diagnosing dementia. Mr. Harrison entered them into evidence with the casual efficiency of someone who had done this 1,000 times. Through it all, Clara sat in the gallery, her face a mask of concerned sorrow, the perfect daughter-in-law, heartbroken by her mother-in-law's decline. Judge Vasquez looked at the pile of evidence, then at me. Mrs. Torres, do you have representation? Daniel stood. Yes, Your Honor. Daniel Peterson, representing Mrs. Torres pro bono. Mr. Peterson, does your client wish to present a defense? We do, Your Honor, and we have evidence that will fundamentally change this court's understanding of the situation. Mr. Harrison objected. Your Honor, we have provided ample medical and testimonial evidence. The respondent's cognitive state. I will decide what evidence is ample, Mr. Harrison. Judge Vasquez looked at Daniel. Proceed. Daniel called me to the witness stand first. I took the oath with a hand that only shook slightly. Mrs. Torres, are you currently homeless? Yes. Why? Because my daughter-in-law, Clara Torres, told my son she was sending me $4,000 every month for 3 years. She was not. I could not afford my rent without that promised support. Murmurs in the courtroom. Brandon's face went white. Daniel handed me a stack of papers. Are these your bank statements for the past 3 years? They are. Do they show any deposits from Clara Torres? No, not a single one. Mr. Harrison stood. Your Honor, Mrs. Torres closed the account to which payments were being sent without informing Mrs. Clara Torres. The payments were returned. This has been established. Daniel smiled. Has it? Mrs. Torres, did you close an account? Yes. 2 years ago. The bank branch near me closed, so I opened a new account at a closer branch. The bank transferred everything automatically. And did you inform your son's company of this change? My Social Security goes to that account without issue. I assumed everything was automatic. Daniel turned to the judge. Your Honor, the petitioner claims Mrs. Clara Torres has been sending $4,000 monthly to the respondent. That is $144,000 over 3 years. I would like to see proof of those payments. Mr. Harrison looked annoyed but unsurprised. We have bank records showing the transactions. Showing transfers to an account number, yes. But did those transfers actually complete? If the account was closed, as claimed, the money would have been returned to the sender after 30 days. Where are the returned payment notices? A pause. Mr. Harrison shuffled papers. Mrs. Torres handles a large volume of transactions. The notifications may have been overlooked. May have been? Daniel's voice was sharp. Your Honor, I would like to call Clara Torres to the stand. Judge Vasquez nodded. Mrs. Torres, please take the stand. Clara rose gracefully, took the oath, sat down with perfect posture and a calm expression. She was good. So good at this. Mrs. Torres, you testified through your lawyer that you have been sending $4,000 monthly to your mother-in-law. Is that correct? Yes, absolutely. For 3 years? Yes. That is $144,000. Yes. Clara's voice was steady, confident. Can you show this court confirmation that these payments were received? The payments were sent to her account. If she closed that account without telling me, yes or no, Mrs. Torres. Can you show confirmation that Lupe Torres received this money? A tiny hesitation. The bank shows the payments were sent. Sent, yes. But received? You see, Mrs. Torres, if the account was closed, those payments would bounce back to you, did they? I handle many transactions. I may not have noticed. $144,000, and you did not notice it being returned? Clara's composure cracked slightly. I am very busy managing my husband's company finances. Daniel pulled out a folder. Speaking of company finances, I have a question about that. Your Honor, may I present this evidence? He handed papers to the judge, to Mr. Harrison, and kept copies for himself. I saw Brandon lean forward, trying to see what they were. Mrs. Torres, are you familiar with these vendor accounts? Martinez Consulting, Western Professional Services, Lone Star Analysis Group. Clara's face went very still. Those are contractors we use. Are they? Because according to the Texas Secretary of State, all 3 of these companies were registered in your name. And according to your husband's company bank records, significant payments have been made to these shell companies over the past 7 years. The courtroom erupted. Brandon stood up, confusion and horror warring on his face. Mr. Harrison was objecting loudly. Judge Vasquez banged her gavel. Order! Mr. Peterson, where did you obtain these records? From Mr. Marcus Wright, Your Honor, Brandon Torres's business partner. He suspected financial irregularities and conducted an internal audit. He is here to testify if needed. I saw Marcus in the back of the courtroom. He nodded when his name was called. Clara's face had gone pale beneath her makeup. This is ridiculous. Those are legitimate business expenses. Including the $4,000 monthly marked as elder care for owner's mother? Daniel's voice cut like a blade. Care that Lupe Torres never received? Care that, in fact, went to one of your shell companies? Brandon was standing now, his lawyer trying to pull him back down. Clara, what is he talking about? Clara ignored him, focused on Daniel. You have no proof of any wrongdoing, don't I? Your Honor, I would like to play an audio recording made 3 days ago. Mr. Harrison objected strenuously. Your Honor, we have not been provided this evidence in discovery. This recording was made after your petition was filed, Your Honor. It is of a conversation between Clara Torres and Lupe Torres. Judge Vasquez looked severe. This recording was made with Mrs. Clara Torres's knowledge and consent. It was made in a semi-public space, the office of a church shelter. Your Honor, under Texas law. I know Texas law, Mr. Peterson. Play the recording. Daniel pulled out a small speaker, connected his phone, and Clara's voice filled the courtroom. I want you to understand something. I am not doing this to be cruel. I am doing this because Brandon deserves better than to have his mother be a constant source of stress and embarrassment. My voice. You are stealing from him. Clara's voice cold and clear. Or am I smart enough to ensure my future? Brandon makes 7 figures a year, Lupe. He will never miss the money. But you? You were in the way. You still are. The courtroom was silent, except for Clara's recorded voice confessing to years of embezzlement, her plan to institutionalize me, her scheme to continue stealing under the guise of my care expenses. When it ended, the silence was absolute. Brandon was staring at his wife like he had never seen her before. Clara's face was ashen. Mr. Harrison looked like he wanted to sink through the floor. Judge Vasquez spoke into the silence, her voice like iron. Mr. Harrison, I am denying the petition for guardianship. Furthermore, I am ordering an immediate investigation into the allegations raised in this hearing. Mrs. Clara Torres, you are advised not to leave the state pending this investigation." She looked at the bailiff. "Please contact the district attorney's office." 2 police officers appeared. Clara tried to maintain her composure as they approached, but I saw her hands shaking. They read her rights in low voices. Fraud, embezzlement, elder abuse. The charges seemed to go on forever. As they led her past Brandon, she tried to speak to him. He turned away. The hearing was over. Judge Vasquez left. The courtroom emptied. I sat in the witness box, shaking, unable to quite believe it was real. Daniel touched my shoulder gently. "Mrs. Torres, Lupe, you can come down now." I stood on unsteady legs. Across the courtroom, Brandon stood alone, his family trying to talk to him, his lawyer trying to explain something about civil liability, but his eyes found mine. He crossed the space between us slowly. I saw my son, my baby boy, who I had raised and loved and who had almost locked me away, and I saw the moment he realized what he had nearly done. "Mom." His voice broke on the word. "Mom, I am so sorry." And I held him while he cried, my millionaire son who had believed his wife over his mother and forgave him even though it hurt, because he was my son, because Clara had been that good at lying, because love does not die even when it should. The days after the hearing blurred together like watercolors in rain. Clara was arrested formally, charged with multiple counts of embezzlement, fraud, and attempted elder abuse. The bail was set high enough that even Brandon's wealth could not easily cover it, and he made no attempt to try. I stayed at the shelter those first few days. Brandon wanted me to move in with him immediately, but I was not ready. Too much had happened. Too much trust had been broken. I needed time to process, to breathe, to figure out who I was now that the nightmare had ended. Marcus called me on the 3rd day after the hearing. We met at the same diner where we had plotted Clara's downfall, both of us nursing coffee that had gone cold while we talked. "The forensic accountants are still going through the books," he said, looking exhausted. Dark circles under his eyes suggested he had not been sleeping, but the preliminary numbers are staggering. "She has been siphoning money for 7 years, nearly $2 million. I could not comprehend that number. 2 million. It was more money than I would see in 10 lifetimes. "The $4,000 a month using your name was just one piece," Marcus continued. "She had vendor accounts, fake consultant fees, equipment purchases that never happened. She was brilliant about it. Small amounts spread over years, always just under the threshold that would trigger an audit. How did she know how to do all that? She was a forensic accountant before she married Brandon, worked for the FBI tracking financial crimes." Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. "She knew exactly what auditors look for because she used to be one. She knew every loophole, every blind spot. So she used that knowledge to steal." "Yes." He rubbed his face. "I should have caught it sooner. I knew something was off, but she was always so smooth with her explanations. And she was family. You want to trust family. I thought about Brandon, about how completely Clara had manipulated him. Yes, you do. The company is recovering the funds, most of it anyway. Some of it she already moved offshore, but we are working with federal prosecutors to track it down. And Brandon wants you to know." Marcus pulled out an envelope. "This is yours. The $144,000 she stole using your name." I stared at the check. $144,000. More money than I had ever had at once in my life. "I cannot take this." "It is yours, Lupe. She stole it in your name. It belongs to you. But it came from Brandon's company, and Brandon is insisting you take it. He said to tell you it is not nearly enough to make up for what he almost did to you, but it is a start." I took the check with shaking hands. Looked at all those zeros. This money could change my life. A real apartment, a reliable car, medical care, security. Things I had stopped letting myself hope for. "There is something else," Marcus said. "Clara had a life insurance policy on Brandon, $5 million. She took it out 2 years ago. The implication hung between us like smoke. She was going to kill him. We cannot prove it. But yes, I think so. Eventually, once she had stolen enough, hidden enough, set everything up, she would have been a very wealthy widow." Marcus looked sick. Brandon is my best friend, my business partner. I almost let this happen. You did not let anything happen. She fooled everyone. Not you. You saw through her. Only because I was her target. If I had been anyone else, I would have believed her too. 3 weeks after the hearing, I moved into a small house. Not an apartment, a house. 2 bedrooms, a yard with actual grass, a kitchen with appliances that all worked. Brandon found it, bought it outright, put the deed in my name. I cannot accept this, I said when he showed me the papers. Mom, please. He looked older now, like the past month had aged him years. Please, let me do this. Let me try to make this right. So I accepted. Not because I thought it made things right, but because he needed to do it and I needed a place to live. We were both trying to figure out how to move forward. Stephanie came to visit a week after I moved in. We sat in my new living room, drinking tea, the silence awkward. I am sorry, Mom, she finally said. I am so sorry. I should have believed you. I should have listened. Clara was very convincing. That is not an excuse. You are my mother. I should have trusted you over her. Stephanie was crying now, mascara running down her face. I testified against you. I was going to help lock you up. How do you forgive that? I did not have a good answer. The truth was, I was still figuring out how to forgive any of them. The hurt was still too fresh, too deep. But Stephanie was my daughter. I loved her even when she had failed me. We will figure it out, I said. It will take time, but we will figure it out. Thomas came too, brought his wife and kids. They were all apologetic, all horrified by what had almost happened. The family group chat that had excluded me now included me again, full of messages checking in, offering help, trying to rebuild what Clara had systematically destroyed. It was strange being welcomed back into a family that had turned on me so completely. Part of me wanted to reject them all, to hold on to my anger and hurt. But another part of me, the part that had spent months alone and terrified, desperately wanted my family back. So I let them in, slowly, carefully, with boundaries and honesty, and a lot of difficult conversations. Pastor Ruth visited often, bringing food from church potlucks and gossip from the congregation. Beverly came too, the woman from the shelter who had warned me about guardianship abuse. She was still at the shelter, still fighting her own daughter's control over her life. Your case gives me hope, she said, sitting in my sunny kitchen, drinking coffee I could now afford. If you could win against all that evidence, maybe I can too. I helped her find a lawyer. Used some of my recovered money to pay for a forensic accountant to review her daughter's handling of her finances. It was the least I could do. We had been in the shelter together. We had survived together. And now I had the resources to help her fight the same battle I had barely won. 4 months after the hearing, Clara's trial date was set. The prosecutor offered her a plea deal 15 years in exchange for cooperation in recovering the offshore accounts. Her lawyer recommended she take it. Going to trial risked a much longer sentence. Clara refused the deal. She still thinks she can win, Marcus told me. She thinks she can convince a jury that she was somehow justified, that the recordings were doctored, that we are all lying. Can she? No. The evidence is overwhelming. But Clara has always believed she is the smartest person in every room. She cannot accept that she lost. The trial was scheduled for 6 months away. I was called as a witness. So was Brandon, Marcus, multiple company employees, the forensic accountants. The prosecution was building an airtight case. Brandon and I were having dinner once a week now, trying to rebuild our relationship. It was hard. We were both damaged by what had happened, both trying to navigate a new reality where trust had to be earned back slowly. I keep thinking about all the signs I missed, he said one evening, pushing pasta around his plate. The way she always had an explanation for everything. How she isolated me from you, from our family. The little comments she would make, always questioning your memory, your judgment. I can see it all now, but at the time she was your wife. Someone you loved. You were supposed to trust your spouse, but not more than my mother. Never more than my mother. He looked at me, his eyes red. How do I forgive myself for that? The same way I am learning to forgive you. One day at a time, with patience and honesty and time. It was not a perfect answer. There were no perfect answers. But it was true. My health improved once I could afford my medication regularly. My blood pressure stabilized. I gained back the weight I had lost during those terrible months. I returned to work at the library, not because I needed the money now, but because I loved it. Life slowly began to feel normal again. Not the same as before, too much had changed for that, but a new kind of normal. One built on harder truths and earned trust, and the knowledge that everything could be taken away in an instant. 6 months after the hearing, the night before Clara's trial was set to begin, I got a call from the prosecutor. "Mrs. Torres, I wanted to let you know. Clara changed her mind. She is taking the plea deal. 15 years? Yes. With good behavior, she could be out in 12. It is not as much time as I would like, but it is justice. And it means you will not have to testify, will not have to relive everything in court." I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt a strange kind of emptiness. I had been preparing myself to face her in court, to tell my story publicly, to watch her be held accountable. The plea deal felt anticlimactic. But it was over. Finally, truly over. The day Clara was sentenced, I did not go to the courthouse. I had said everything I needed to say. Instead, I spent the day in my garden, planting tomatoes and peppers and herbs, my hands in the dirt, the sun warm on my back. Brandon called me that evening. She got 15 years. No parole eligibility for 12. "How do you feel?" A long silence. Relieved. Angry. Sad. Everything. Another pause. She apologized. In court, before the sentencing. She said she was sorry for what she did to me, to the company, to you. The judge did not seem impressed. Do you think she meant it? I do not know. Maybe. Or maybe it was one last manipulation. He sighed. I am getting a divorce, obviously. The papers are already filed. How are you doing? Really? I am in therapy. Trying to understand how I let this happen, how I did not see it. The therapist says Clara exhibited classic, narcissistic, sociopathic behavior, that people like her are very good at manipulation. That I should not blame myself. His voice cracked. But I almost put my own mother in a locked facility, Mom. How do I not blame myself for that? You were manipulated by someone you loved, someone who spent years building an elaborate lie. You are human, Brandon. Humans make mistakes. You are too forgiving. No, I am just too tired to hold on to anger forever. It does not mean I have forgotten. It does not mean everything is fine. But I am choosing to move forward. With you, if you want. At whatever pace we need. We talked for another hour. About therapy, about the business Marcus was now full partner, and Clara's shares had been seized as part of her restitution, about his plans to donate a significant amount to elder abuse prevention charities. I want to create a foundation, he said. In your name. To help other elderly people facing guardianship abuse, legal aid, advocacy, education. This should not happen to anyone else. That is a good idea. Will you help me run it? You know what it is like. You could help other people tell their stories, fight back. I thought about Beverly, still fighting her daughter. About the stories I had read online during those desperate nights of research. About how many people lost battles like mine because they did not have a Daniel Peterson, a Marcus Wright, a recorded confession. Yes, I said. I will help. The foundation launched 6 months later, the Lupe Torres Elder Justice Foundation. We hired lawyers, social workers, advocates. We created a hotline for elderly people to call if they suspected guardianship abuse. We lobbied for stronger protections, more oversight, better laws. Beverly was our first client. We helped her prove her daughter had been systematically stealing from her, got the guardianship overturned, recovered her assets. She moved into a senior living community, one she chose herself, and called me every Sunday to update me on her life. I am free, she said on one of those calls. Really free. Because of you. Because of both of us, I corrected. You did not give up, even when you had every reason to. The work was hard, but meaningful. Every person we helped, every guardianship we overturned, every dollar we recovered, it all felt like a small victory against the system that had nearly destroyed me. Stephanie and I rebuilt our relationship slowly. She volunteered at the foundation, worked intake calls, listened to stories from people whose families had betrayed them. I think it was her way of making amends. We would never have the relationship we had before too much had been broken, but we forged something new. Something built on honesty and hard conversations and genuine effort. Thomas came to family dinners now held at my house, not Brandon's mansion. My small dining room table fit all of us if we squeezed together. We laughed again, carefully at first, then more genuinely. We never talked about Clara unless someone brought her up, and then only briefly. She had taken up enough of our time and energy. We were done giving her any more. Pastor Ruth and the church remained a central part of my life. I volunteered at the shelter where I had once lived, helped serve meals, listened to stories, offered what hope I could. Madison had left her abusive husband with the help of church resources and was rebuilding her life. Crystal was in rehab, struggling but trying. The work of healing was never done, but it continued. On Mother's Day, 1 year after Clara was sentenced, Brandon came to my house with flowers. Real ones, not expensive arrangements from a florist, but wildflowers he had picked himself from the field near his property. They were messy and imperfect and beautiful. Happy Mother's Day, Mom. We had lunch in my garden, surrounded by the vegetables that were just starting to grow. Stephanie came too, and Thomas with his family. We ate and talked and laughed, and for the first time in years, it felt like a real family gathering. After everyone left, I sat on my porch as the sun set, a blanket across my lap, watching the sky turn gold and pink and purple. I thought about the past 2 years. The fear, the desperation, the moments I almost gave up, the unlikely allies who appeared when I needed them most, the strength I found in myself when I had nothing left to lose. I thought about Clara in prison, 12 years stretching ahead of her. I should have felt satisfaction. Mostly, I just felt tired. She had stolen so much money, time, trust, peace. She had nearly stolen my freedom, my life, but she had not succeeded. I was still here, still free, still myself. The evening air was cool and sweet with the scent of jasmine from my neighbor's yard. Somewhere down the street, children were playing, their laughter carrying on the breeze. Normal sounds from normal lives. Lives I could have again now. I learned something through this nightmare that I wish I had not needed to learn. I learned that the people closest to you can betray you in ways you never imagined. That systems meant to protect the vulnerable can be twisted into weapons against them. That truth does not always win just because it is true. Sometimes you have to fight for it with everything you have. But I also learned that there are good people in the world. People like Pastor Ruth who showed up when I had nothing. Like Daniel who fought for me when I could not pay him. Like Marcus who risked his business partnership to uncover the truth. Like Beverly who shared her own painful story to warn me. These people owed me nothing, but gave me everything. I learned that rock bottom is not the end, it can be the beginning of climbing back up. That 70 years old is not too old to start over, to fight back, to reclaim your life. That dignity is not something someone else can take away unless you let them. Most importantly, I learned that forgiveness is not weakness, and boundaries are not cruelty. That you can love someone who hurt you and still protect yourself from future harm. That family is important, but so is truth. That healing takes time and patience and a willingness to sit with difficult feelings without rushing to fix them. My son almost locked me away to protect a lie his wife told. My daughter testified against me. My family turned their backs when I needed them most. These are facts I cannot change, but they are not the only facts. My son also helped expose his wife's crimes, even though it destroyed his marriage. My daughter volunteers at my foundation, trying to help others avoid what almost happened to me. My family shows up now, really shows up, in ways they never did before. We are not perfect. We are not fixed. But we are trying. Some days, that is enough. The sky was fully dark now, stars beginning to appear in the velvet blue. I pulled my blanket closer and allowed myself to feel what I had been too afraid to feel for so long. Peace. I want to ask you something, and I hope you will take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had someone in your life who manipulated others into doubting you? Maybe not to this extreme, but those small moments where someone twisted the truth just enough that people you loved started to question your version of events? How did you handle it? Did you fight back? Or did you walk away? I would love to hear your stories. And if this story resonated with you, if it made you think about the elderly people in your life who might be vulnerable, please share it. You never know who might need to hear this message. Hit that like button if you believe in standing up for truth, even when it is hard. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories about resilience, justice, and the power of refusing to give up. To everyone watching who has ever felt alone, betrayed, or unheard, your story matters. Your truth matters. Do not let anyone convince you otherwise. And to the caregivers, the advocates, the Pastor Ruths and Daniel Petersons and Marcuses of the world who show up for people who have nothing to offer in return, thank you. You are the reason stories like mine can have happy endings. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope you walk away from this, knowing that no matter how dark things get, there is always a path forward. It might be steep and difficult and require more strength than you think you have, but it is there, and you are stronger than you know. Take care of yourselves. Take care of the elderly people in your lives. Ask the hard questions. Believe people when they tell you something is wrong. And never, ever underestimate the power of someone who has nothing left to lose. Until next time, I wish you courage, truth, and the kind of family blood or chosen that shows up when it matters most.